All right. Zach, Michigan put out, well, I guess I don't know if they put out. I feel like Michigan probably leaked some information to Ross Dellinger about their response to the notice of allegations and everything like that. A 173-page letter. Wow. Yikes. That
Mm.
is huge. And Ross Dellinger did his best to summarize what was in it and what they were fighting for. And there was a lot of stuff that was talked about. You and I will try our best to get through all of it. This isn't going to turn into like an hour-long segment, but essentially, Michigan is attempting to defend the allegations. They're attempting to defend the Connor Stallion sign stealing scheme. The Michigan, like, who was the one that told on Michigan and everything like that. We'll get to all that. There's also recruiting violation stuff in there, all kinds of stuff like that. Before we do that, just want to highlight 2025 Natty Champs Fisherman bought 5 gifted memberships for podcast members. Thank you so much for that.
Yep.
Really appreciate it. And look at that. Terry got one. There we go. Says
Mm.
thank you, Natty. Yes, thank you for doing that, Natty Champs. Really appreciate it. That's a great way to start us off. So 5 right away. How about that? So you're the
Hey.
best fisherman. Were you gonna say something, Zach?
No, I was just
Oh,
gonna say thank you to 2025 Natty Champs / Michigan / the man.
there we
It
go.
worked.
He said it worked. All right, that's a great way to test it. All right, thank you so much, fisherman. We cannot
Yeah.
thank you enough. That is very generous of you. All right, now let's talk about all this, Zach. So my first question to you: Are you like me? Do you think this came from somebody at Michigan? Because to me, all of this screams Michigan trying to publicly defend themselves, and so therefore Michigan, kind of leaked this information to Ross Dellinger, telling them like maybe they didn't give him all 137 pages, but they were like, here's kind of what we talked about and kind of what we put out there. What are your thoughts?
I feel like this is what Michigan has done the whole time. Deflect, release some sort of like woe is me victim mentality type of, thing, and said we're not guilty and also what you found is insignificant, which is hilariously ironic. It's the same thing over and over again, which is why it's just annoying. Like, on one hand, I'm like, oh, it's this new thing, but I would agree with you. This feels like PR. Like, that's what it is, and Ross is their puppet. I don't mean that to denigrate Ross, but Ross is like, I get to report a story. No, it's not a story, it's PR. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, if this was something that was maybe from the NCAA, you would have maybe seen it from like Pete Thamel or something like that. I would think, but the fact that, I mean, it's no secret. Dan Wetzel works with Ross Dellinger, and Dan Wetzel, big Michigan guy, which,
Mm-hmm.
to each his own. I'm not gonna, I know everybody's biased. We said it on this show all the time. People are biased. It is what it is. It's better to acknowledge it than to act like it's not there. But as far as I'm concerned, like it, this was Michigan trying to find some PR in this situation and trying to put information out there to get people to think like we are not in trouble and we've not done anything wrong. Basically, all of the Michigan talking points that you've heard from fans are pretty much in this article, right? Like the NCAA is overreaching and Connor Stallions, wasn't actually cheating. It was actually a loophole because he wasn't sending staff members and he was actually sending his family instead. Okay. They don't actually have any proof. All they have is that he bought tickets. It's like, okay, like they can make these arguments, but to me, like this actually did not help Michigan at all. Like this actually made it worse because I have listed here like 8 or 9 different areas where I feel like they just like they had so many contradictions of themselves. Like in the I'll just give you a few really fast, and then you can comment on them if you want, Zach. Like talks about how like there's no proof, and then at the end they're like, yeah, because Connor Stallions never gave us anything, and it's like, yeah, there's no proof because he didn't give you anything, and that's how you get proof is by asking him to give you stuff. So now instead you're looking and trying to find stuff that wasn't given to you, and who's to say that like stuff wasn't deleted? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I get their thought process there. It's like, well, you don't have any proof, so you can't slam us for this. And it's like, okay, your families were just going to Colorado State for no reason. Like, you were buying tickets to a Colorado State game the week before you played them for no reason. Like, I don't know. Seems a little fishy to me. So, like, and then in addition to that, like, do you really want to take this to court? Because you, that's the only place where you're going to try to be like, well, they don't have any proof. Well, then you're going to open yourself up for discovery. Then the proof's going to have to come out. Otherwise, you get in trouble with the law, not just the NCAA. So, I don't know. There are so many different things. The whole Rutgers thing with them talking about how like Rutgers is an alliance member, but then Rutgers is the one that calls and they're like, "Hey, something fishy is going on here." So it's like that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. That them asking for like lower infractions, but they're saying they don't have any proof the entire time. Like, I don't know. And then at one point they were like, I think it was something along the lines of like only half of this stuff has come from, or like only an enormous amount of evidence came from TV and Skycam. Well, it's like, well, then where did the rest of it come from? Because obviously you were finding it other places too. Which, by the way, this whole idea that you can see signs and everything like that on the Skycams and on all 22 and everything, like the only time you see the coaches in all 22 is when they look up at the scoreboard. And Michigan has a scoreboard with a screen up there. So when you watch the all 22 footage, I literally have an advertisement for watching all 22 film on here because you can go do it at Minnesota Sports. If you watch that on there, occasionally you'll see a coach on the big screen, but it's not often. And when you do, it's like a quick cut to them looking at the coach really fast and then cutting away. Go to a game. You don't see the coach up on the big screen doing their signals for like the entire game. It just doesn't happen. So the thought process that you could steal signals from the 2 or 3 times you see it on TV and the handful of times you see it on all 22, like it just, and you would also have to have that team on the other side of where the camera is. Not a lot of teams have that. Most teams have the visiting side on that side because they know of stuff like this. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Zach? Oh, and then the other thing is this, is they mentioned the Skycam view. You realize only ESPN does the Skycam view. You know who doesn't play on ESPN? Big Ten teams. Like, I discovered the Skycam view in the playoffs because I was like, man, this is awesome. And then I was like, crap, we won't get this next year because it's not ESPN, which I don't really like ESPN. It's fine, but I also kind of like the Skycam view. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like when you are guilty of something, you tend to talk more because you're like, I've got to defend myself. And I think what you just said was like, there's all these different contradictions because they know they need to defend themselves versus someone who is innocent. Typically, if you're innocent, you know what you don't do? Talk a lot about it because you're like, yeah, I didn't do it. And there's not a lot of like, there isn't proof because I didn't do it. So the thing that's, and maybe this is where we're going. I think the thing that's frustrating, and people have mentioned it in the chat, it's like, you know what stinks about it? This is 2 years after the fact. So like, it's really hard to like, it's a big deal because it's breaking news-ish. But it's like, you know what stinks about it is this was 2 years ago. And so like, why is like, and we still don't have resolution. Like this is a PR move before there is resolution. I think I saw somewhere where it's like, they're not expecting resolution till like early summer. What are we waiting for? Which has been my frustration the whole time with this whole thing.
And this is the ultimate goal of it all. I was going to say this till the end, but I'll just say it now since you're talking about it. The ultimate goal for Michigan here is just to push this along as long as possible. Because guess what eventually is going to go away? The NCAA. Mm-hmm. So if they can keep pushing this along, eventually the NCAA is going to go away. Like, I don't know how it's not obvious at this point. Like, there are going to be punishments at some point. Maybe you can try to mitigate those punishments and stuff like that. Like, it's obvious they're going to be there, but maybe you can try to mitigate them. But if you just want to get away from this altogether, right? Like Fisherman says it, delay, delay, delay. So that way you can move this along. And then hopefully the Big Ten and the SEC are like, yeah, forget about you, NCAA. We don't need you anymore.
Well, but here's the thing. But like, what punishment will actually be meaningful at this point?
I mean, there's not. Like you and I have talked about it. The
Yeah.
fans still felt everything. You still have all the clips. Like there's not a punishment.
Right.
That's, I mean, it can be meaningful to the university that like they can't go to a bowl game and like do all this stuff. But guess what? If a Big Ten team makes it to the national championship, they're still going to get the payout from that, you know? Like, and I guess unless the Big Ten punishes them, but I can't see the Big Ten doing that.
No. So I think, and even if they take away, again, scholarship reductions, well, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Because of NIL.
I do wonder if that matters a little bit more because you can't have walk-ons.
Yeah.
But I also don't think teams are going to use all 105 scholarships.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of smoke out there about teams being like, oh, we're only going to have 105 scholarships. Well, we only get $20 million for our revenue. So let's just only have like 60 scholarships instead and just really maximize the talent that we have. And if we get a bunch of injuries, like, oh, well, it stinks, but
yeah,
it is what it is, you know?
So so David and Brian in the chat mentioned, I think, my frustration with this because they're like vacating seasons, bowl bans, whatnot. And we've said this before. So if you've heard us say this ad nauseum, I'm sorry that we're repeating it. Vacating wins is the dumbest penalty in the world. Because here's the problem. Everybody saw the title happen. Everybody, like, and you know, you guys know we're Ohio State fans. I don't care if those wins are taken away from Michigan because I saw it and felt it in the moment, and so did the players. And I just, like, if they take away the title, everybody that's a college football fan is going to remember it until like we all die. And like that was the same thing with the 2004 title for USC. It's like, yeah, I never stopped thinking that they were the champions, despite the fact that they did cheat and they cheated severely. Like they paid impermissible benefits to Reggie Bush. I think it was over $200,000, which at that time was not kosher. Now everything's been reinstated because of NIL. But the point of that is, I think we're all waiting for the hammer to drop, and like the hammer that needed to drop, if this was going to matter at all, was in 2023 and say you can't participate in the playoff. And they were too slow. And so my conclusion out of all of this is the NCAA stinks. And like, it's frustrating because I'm like, you knew as soon as the playoff happened in 2023, it doesn't matter what penalty comes down.
So I agree. Obviously, I've been saying it for a while. Like, it doesn't really do all that much. I do think, though, like, as a fan of a team that just won a national championship, if that trophy had to go away from the facility, which is what would happen if they take away the national championship, like, there would be a part of that hurts, right? And yes, I know Fisherman, NCAA doesn't control the CFP, but like they also didn't control the BCS either, and the BCS still upheld when there were bowl bans and stuff like that. So unless the CFP just wanted to go completely rogue, which they could because the NCAA doesn't control them, they could do that. But as far as I'm concerned, like from what you look at history wise, that's probably what the college football playoff will do. Maybe they won't. We'll see. Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, like a postseason ban might make them feel some things, but at the end of the day, you're right. They still keep all the memories of their national championship. Yes, it's off the books. Yes, you take away the trophy most likely, but you still keep all that stuff. So at this point now, I think Michigan has the best plan here, which is just delay, delay, delay. I think the defense is kind of comical because of all the contradictions, as I pointed out. But
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, you know it, I know it, everybody who's a college football fan knows it. The NCAA isn't going to last. It's going to die at some point.
Yep.
At least for the Big Ten and SEC, it is.
Yeah. Well, and can I just point out what you're saying too? Like if they take the trophy, because I agree with you. Like that would suck if your trophy got taken away. Who's getting punished then? The fans. Which, of all the people that should be punished, the last people that should be punished are the fans. Like the school should be punished. The coaches should be punished. Like they're not going to feel like maybe the postseason ban, they would feel a little bit, but like, and I know some people hate Michigan fans because of their feeling of like, oh, they're arrogant, they're jerks, da, da, da.
They're defending their program just like anybody else would.
But that's the thing that's frustrating me the most about this is like, who's going to suffer the most from anything that the NCAA does? It's the fans. And that's stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the university loses some because you lose the credibility of like bringing somebody in and like showing them the trophy and all that stuff. Like, I mean, I can see some of that there, but I mean, overall, like the fans are the extension of the program. So like, I agree with you. It stinks to punish the fans because they're not the ones that did it. But at the same time, like your fans are the ones that root for you and the ones that, like, I don't know. It's a tough conversation. I think at the end of the day, what you said at first is correct. Like the NCAA stinks. They blew it. They had the opportunity, and John's right there with us. Like they had the opportunity to do something about it, and they didn't because they have such a slow moving process and a team that was most likely cheating based off everything we know. Won the national championship, and people can argue that like, oh, it didn't mean anything, and oh, it didn't do anything. Well, it's like, okay, then why'd you do it? Mm-hmm. If it didn't mean anything, if it didn't do anything, then why'd you do it? Like, come on. Still broke the rules, but
I'll just say this last thing. I'm being fatalistic. I'm realizing because I think you are right, JR, that there is some value for a punishment. Like there really is. But I think where I'm landing, and I'm probably arguing it too much. I just wish that the NCAA did the right thing to actually make things most meaningful to the people that it needed to. So like there like the symbolic punishment will be, there is some resolution there, I think, for different fan bases, for different programs. I just like, it's just not good enough. I think that's probably a better way to put it, is like, it's not good enough. And that's the NCAA's problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest one is what David keeps talking about, the postseason ban. It would affect talent acquisition and recruiting overall.
Yeah.
And if you have that, that's hard to recover from. Ask SMU, right?
Yeah.
Now, Michigan's not going to get the death penalty or anything like that. They're not going to do that again, especially to a Big Ten conference member. They're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But like, if that happened, the NCAA is going away even more until then. But and then Philip says innocent until proven guilty. I mean, when they put out that letter, like that 15-page letter, they said we have all the evidence, you're guilty. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess until they're punished, but like that's the thing in this like article, Michigan says like, yeah, we cheated, or like, yeah, we broke the rules. You're just counting too many things against us. So it's not like they're in there denying that it happened. They're just denying that, it's it's not as bad as they're saying, which maybe that's true, but I don't know. That still seems like a pretty weak argument. Like, oh yeah, we did do it, but it's not as bad as you guys are making it out to be. It's like, okay, but you still did it.
Brian makes a good point. If Michigan's not hammered, it's open season on cheating, which part of the problem with college football even now is there's too much Wild Wild West stuff with NIL, and that's just another.
And you could argue it's open season
it.
on cheating right now with tampering and everything else.
Yeah.
So
the NCAA needs to. It's not. This is one layer of a very complex onion that the NCAA needs to regulate. Otherwise, the sport is going to tailspin a bit.
Yeah. Dwayne is asking if people have seen the video of Stroud calling the audible and Stalions acting accordingly. If you haven't seen the video, there was a video posted by one of the news, I think it was a sports news anchor in a news station in Ohio, where essentially CJ Stroud calls an audible. He's pointing his camera right at CJ Stroud. In the background is the entire Michigan team. As soon as he calls the audible, like 2 seconds later, Connor Stalions starts doing this. And literally everybody on the Michigan sideline starts doing that too, which maybe just everybody knew the signal because Ohio State had used it multiple times. Or what's more plausible is that everybody knew that Connor Stalions knew. And so once Connor Stalions did it, everybody started doing it. You know, take that for what it's worth. But I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Dwayne, but I think that's the video he's talking about. So, and Barbara, SEC's been cheating for years. Well, they can't cheat as much now because everybody can pay players. But I wouldn't be lying if I said they weren't tampering, which that's the thing. Everybody's tampering now. So here's what it is. So, all right, Zach, we are going to, yeah, I agree with you, PK. Need a college football czar. That's what we need. We need somebody who will actually create rules that are relevant to college football and enforce them. That's what we need.
Yep.
And